Today, I'm super excited because this is my first guest appearance ever. It's my friend Katelin who is coming on to talk to us all about solo hiking the Appalachian Trail and all kinds of other adventures she's been on. So, Katelin, thank you so much for being here.
For
Being my
having
guinea.
me.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for being my guinea pig.
Well, hopefully, I think we'll be able to pull out enough good stories to have a good show for today.
Yes, yes. Okay, so Caitlin and I have known each other for, I don't know, like 4 years.
Around
Yeah,
there, 4 or 5
like
years.
4
Yep.
years. And I didn't realize when we met that you were into all of these hiking and adventures. And then probably during COVID, I saw that you were hiking the AT by yourself, like these 6, 15, mile hikes at a time, and then camping out there too, which
hmm
terrifies me. So good for you. So tell the people about yourself.
Yeah, so I've started solo backpacking back in 2020 is when it was. I had backpacking experience from when I was a kid, but I had not done any sort of camping or backpacking probably in 15 years or so. So I was certainly very rusty getting on trail. Yeah, and so I guess that's my little backstory. I had done 50 miles with a group through a camp when I was 16 years old, and that was the last time that I had been backpacking.
Did you say 50 like 50?
Yes.
Okay. How long did
Yeah.
that take?
Um, Camp, we were there for 2 weeks, but I believe we were on trail for 5 days. So we did 10 miles a day, about roughly.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. So you're doing this when you're younger, 16, you do this incredible hike, and then nothing for a little while until you kind of
Mhm.
started getting back into it a few years ago. Cool.
Yeah.
How did you get back into it as an adult?
Yeah, well, I had went hiking with my friends. We'd go to Stone Mountain, things like that. I decided I wanted to just get back on trail and just do day hikes. So I started at Mount Yona, and then I started at the southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail and hiked there through to Hightower Gap, and that was about 12 miles, I think, in one day. And I saw a lot of people who were getting on trail to through hike, and I just realized that, with the way that gear is these days, I could, if I put the investment in to get lighter gear, I would definitely like to try to backpack on my own and start section hiking. And lots of YouTube, watched a lot of YouTubers on, tricks and tips for backpacking alone. And I certainly never felt fearful of backpacking out there by myself. Really, the biggest fear for me is not having enough water from a water source, stepping on a copperhead or stepping into a yellow jacket hive. Those are really the only things I'm afraid of on trail.
That blows my mind because I get the water thing. I get the water thing. I like snakes, even the dangerous ones. My
Mhm.
fear is a crazy person living out there and like eating me alive. That's my biggest fear.
Crazy people are definitely something always in the back of your head. And I think that when crimes like on the AT that have happened, and they happen so infrequently that it compares that they have comparison numbers. And like in Chicago, you have a 5% chance of getting murdered or something like that. But on the AT, it's 0.00013% chance. It's such a big community too. It's not only the hikers that are on trail with you, it's the trail angels, the people in those towns that really depend on the tourism from people through hiking. It's it's such a different vibe out there than it is really hiking anywhere else.
Okay, so Atlanta, I'm sure is not nearly as bad as Chicago, and yet I'm assuming Atlanta is, still has a prevalent murder rate. Okay, so you mentioned a trail angel. What is that?
Oh yeah. So people that are trail angels, they'll wait at the end of a gap. It's usually going to be like there'll be more trail angels around big milestones, like the North Carolina, Georgia border. Before you get to Damascus, there are going to be people there. The one going into the Smokies. So it'll be people that have snacks and food. Some people bring out like entire tricked out rigs where you can take showers and they've got barbecues going, and they just want to sit and feed you and talk. And it's a really cool treat, especially if, you're thirsty or you're hungry and, you're tired of eating protein bars. It's nice to have an apple or something like that. So yeah.
The simple pleasure of just one fresh piece of fruit on the
Yeah.
trail. So basically, it sounds like as people are going from Georgia to Maine or whatever section of the Appalachian Trail at the major stopping points, these Good Samaritans, I guess, just come on and they're like, hey, have a snack. Here's my RV. Go take a shower in it.
Yeah, basically, I do know from what I've heard, people that as you get further into the north and towards the more end of your hike, there's not going to be as much trail magic as there is in the beginning. So it's not something that people should be reliant on if, they're doing it, but it's just one of those nice things for people to do, but certainly not expected.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool. So you started off doing day hikes, right? Like, would you start
Mhm.
super early in the morning? Would you go literally all day?
Yeah. So when I was starting to get further into the beginning of the Georgia section, I did the first section that was 12 miles. And I forget how many hours it took me, maybe like 8 or 9 hours or something I usually hike around 2 miles an hour is my average. And then I did one over by Unicoi. I didn't do that solo. I did that one with Brandon, but I'm glad we did that section because the mountain was terrible getting over. So I was really happy I got to skip doing that when I was backpacking. And then I realized I had to start backpacking if I really was going to get any further, because I was having to leave Atlanta for 3 o'clock in the morning to park my car, get picked up by my shuttle driver. And having to do that for only a 1 day hike, it gets costly. So definitely wanted to start backpacking. So my first one was from Neil Gap to Unicoi, which was, I think, maybe 35 miles. And I did that in 2 days. And
Wow.
I tented at Whitley Gap Shelter, which is my favorite shelter on trail, but it's about 2 miles off the Appalachian Trail. And it's super remote. So a lot of people aren't going to take the time to go down to that shelter, but it has the best water from an artesianal well that I've ever had on trail ever. So
Did
it holds a special place in my heart. Although when I went back to it in October, it didn't have any water. So it was an interesting stay there that night, having to ration my own water.
Okay, did you say an artesian well?
That's what I've read, but I think it's just one of those natural wells that is held underneath the sand bediment. Or I don't that don't take it for fact from me, but that is what I had read. So,
I love it.
um, yeah, but it was really, really cool, really cold water. But being down there, it's spooky though, because you know, it might be a few days. If something happens to you, it might be a few days before they can really get to you, or if you get injured, because you're way down in there. So, and there's no service either.
Okay, so you said you're shuttle driver. So, for those of y'all that don't know, my guess, Caitlin, is that you would park where you're planning on ending the hike, and then someone else obviously gets to drive you to where you start the hike so that you have your vehicle access at the end. Okay, so
Right.
you weren't doing round trip hikes. You were driving up as far north as you were choosing to go, and then hiking south. Okay, cool. How many
Yeah.
day hikes did you go on before you got comfortable doing these overnighters?
I would probably say maybe I did like four, because I did Mount Yona, and then I did a couple runs of just up Blood Mountain by myself. And that might have been my first hike, I think, that I did solo, was it was either Mount Yonah or Blood Mountain. I remember Mountain was still pretty iced over. So I almost killed myself coming down a few times and learned that having micro spikes probably would have been a good idea for that time of year, which was a good lesson learned there. But in Georgia, usually you're not going to need micro spikes at all. So yeah, probably four. So Blood Mountain, Mount Yonah, the first blaze to High Tower, and then I did High Tower to Woody Gap. Yeah. After I had already done a couple overnight hikes, I had to do Woody Gap to Neil Gap. But so I actually parked at where I got on trail and got picked up at my endpoint because I guess I'm more of a purist and I want my foot to go on every inch of the actual trail and not skip it. And if you do that section, you can't park at mountain crossings where the Appalachian Trail comes through. You have to park on the Byron Reese trailhead. So you miss about like 2 miles, 3 miles by doing it that way. But I was just not gonna miss it. So my shuttle driver made a little fun of me. He was like, "Oh, you're a purist, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I gotta hit them all." But
No, that's fair. Like if you're gonna say I did the whole AT, you better be able to have done the whole AT, man.
yeah. Well, they also add and subtract miles every year. So then I saw that I think they added like a half a mile from the Unicoi between Niels and Unicoi. And I was like, okay, does this mean I have to redo it now to get that extra like half mile? But I'm gonna go with no, the year, whatever year I did that section, we're gonna it's gonna be good with it.
Okay, that is fair, or probably every year you're going to go back and do some tiny section, and that would just be never ending. Well, maybe there you go. Maybe that's a new little project for you forever and ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love being out there on the AT. And so it's not something where just because I completed the Georgia section, I'm still always out there on it. Yeah. It's just fun. So I like seeing it on in all the different seasons as well. Summer is probably my least favorite because it's so buggy. It's bad.
Is
And
it
it's
the heat
hot.
and the humidity too, or the bugs?
It's the heat, humidity, the bugs, the trails overrun. So, you come out with just cuts all over you and sweating to death. And it's just fall is a much nicer season to do it in. But I don't mind summer either. Summer is some of the most beautiful hiking that you can have up here because all the flowers are still in bloom and they're really beautiful.
Okay, so you've done all of the Georgia section of the
Mhm.
Appalachian Trail. How many miles is that?
That it changes, as I mentioned earlier, when I did it, and I include my blue blazes, which is your quarter mile that you go off trail to get water and things like that. So for me, I was around over 100 miles.
Okay.
But technically, if you're only logging the AT steps and not any blue blaze, which would be impossible, it's I think 80 miles.
Okay. And it's over 2,000 in total length, right?
Yeah, it's getting pretty close to 2,100 now, if
Okay.
if not already. Yeah, yeah.
So have you done any sections outside of Georgia?
I have. I've done the North Carolina, Tennessee border, and that's the one I did in high school where I did 50 miles of that. I'm hoping that this September to do some of the AT in Vermont while I'm up there. Yeah. So just some day hikes. But yeah, it'll be cool to go up there, see how different it is than the AT down here. I'm sure it's a little more challenging.
Well, I've heard that there are crazy mountainous parts of that part of the country, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
be taking the RV up to Boston, and the route that goes through DC, Philly, New York City doesn't sound good to me in a 31-foot bus. So I'm
Right.
looking at going through, middle of Pennsylvania and then cutting across, and I've heard it gets, you know
Yeah. Well, I've always heard that they call Pennsylvania the state of rocks. It's the Rocky State or something like that. There's some joke. People think it's easy because it looks flat, but you're bouldering pretty much the whole time is what I've heard.
Wow.
It's like, yeah.
Okay, so you
So
really slow down.
it'll be a while before I get to Pennsylvania, though. I still gotta get through North Carolina, and I've heard Virginia, I think they say is the worst one because it's through like the longest part of the hike. Either that or North
Yeah.
Carolina, one of the states where they have you have over like 200 or 300 miles in that one state, and it just feels never ending. So a lot of people kind of lose their wits about them doing that.
Well, and the Shenandoah Mountains are through there, so it's beautiful. And yet
Mhm.
I think that is one of the longest stretches if you're going for a milestone like a state border. So
Yeah.
what's your goal? Do you want to do the entire thing?
Of course I want to, but realistically, can I? I don't know, because the thing with being a section hiker is you have to get your trail legs every time you do it. It's not like someone doing a through where, it takes you a couple, maybe first month, first 2 months to really get your trail legs set in and be much easier than someone that does it section by section or does a lash. You definitely still get super sore. It's way harder to push on those longer mile hauls once you start going over 10 miles a day. Will I still be doing this when I'm 70 years old? I don't know, but I will if I can. It is a goal, but it's not a goal set in stone. However much I accomplish is all that I wanted. Yeah.
I've heard people do it in, 6 months or so when they do it continuously. And if you
Yeah.
have 6 months to go do that, that's incredible. And I can't imagine the planning and the figuring out, where are you going to get, you're not holding food with you,
Right.
for six, we're not bringing a pack mule. So, wow.
Right. A lot of people that do mail food to their pickup points, I've read that they find they get really tired of eating the same thing over and over again. So a lot of times people will just either bounce that package ahead and just get food in town. There's tons of different options for doing that.
How many little towns are there really along the way for you to like be able to come off this huge trail, walk into town with your backpack?
Like if you look at Georgia, mountain crossings that's your first 30 miles in. And the majority of people don't even make it to Neil Gap. That's when a lot of people quit. Yeah, before they even hit North Carolina. You're never going to be probably more than 30, 40 miles from a town, regardless of how far you are in trail, because each of the shelters are roughly 10 miles apart from each other. And then you're never going to be more than, 4 or 5 miles out from a trailhead to a road where you can hitchhike to get into any town. So resupplying on the AT is really easy. You can go really light on food, and because the water generally is very reliable, except for in the summer and in the fall, in Georgia at least, you don't have to carry as much weight in food or water just because resupplying is so simple. For the CDT, the Continental Divide Trail, you definitely have to carry a lot more water and food with you on that trail. It's way more remote, and it's nothing like the Appalachian Trail in terms of how you're not close to any town. So I imagine people that do the AT first and then the CDT are kind of like it would be kind of like a shock.
So the AT could like be a baby step
Yeah.
for them
Yeah.
if you want to do the
Yeah.
Continental Divide. Okay. So you're not scared of doing this by yourself.
No,
Do you prefer to do it by yourself?
I do. I do. I love it. But the thing with hiking with other people is that, day hike is one thing, but backpacking is a whole other thing. And I don't like feeling like either I'm having to wait on someone that's slower than me, or they're having to wait on me because I'm slower than them. This way I can just go at my own pace and hike my own hike and not have to worry about what anybody else is doing that is in my family or hiking with me. I always run into people on trail and just end up talking to them, making friends with them, tenting at the same sites with them on trail just because we're all kind of going the same speed. And so, yeah, I prefer to be alone. I know that there are, you have to always have your wits about you, but this kind of goes hand in hand with just being a woman in general. It doesn't really matter where you are.
Did you say the word trailmily, like trail and family put together?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll meet these people and then you guys will stop and have tents or hammocks or whatever, however you're staying with each other. Okay, and you're just like, "Yep, these are my tramily." Like
Yeah, yeah, I'm
they're
like,
safe.
I met these 2 guys 2 hours ago on trail, and now I'm gonna shelter with them. So, like, it's like an oxymoron almost where, your mom teaches you don't talk to strangers, and then you're hiking in the woods with strangers and part of your survival technique. So it is very interesting. Yeah.
That is a different level of brave that I don't think I've yet reached. Good for
Well,
you.
I've never met anyone on trail that like gave me the heebie-jeebies or anything like that. So I've been lucky there. I know a lot of people will run into someone where something just doesn't feel right. But no, I've never experienced anything like that. And it's so easy to talk to people out there, even if you're section hiking. I've done just a day hike up to Blood Mountain and talked to a guy that was doing a lash, and it was just really cool. He was cowboy camping up there at the summit. I was like, I can never do that. I'd be too scared of rolling off this and dying because you're just on a cliff. But yeah, it's really cool. They're really cool people out there. I mean, there will be stories of bad, malicious people, but it's going to be so unlikely for you to run into anyone like that. So,
What do you always pack? Like, what do you not forget to pack that's either a comfort or a must-have?
well, I can tell you one thing that I did forget to pack, and it was terrible. It was a hairbrush, and I know this sounds so like it's not even something you think about. And had just packed my pack really fast, not even thinking about it, and get to set up my camp a couple miles in. And I was like, oh no, I forgot my hairbrush. And then the next morning, my hair just decided to turn into the biggest knot it possibly could. So I was just trying to finger comb it. That's the only thing that I've forgotten on trail where like it's a nuisance. I've got my bear bagging kit. You can't forget that. I suck at it because it takes me 30 minutes to throw a rock 12 feet into the air, um, but always have that. I always have extra guy line that's reflective so I can set up a little laundry line. And so at night, I'll hang up all my clothes from that day that I hiked in to dry. I always have like clean, dry socks. Sometimes, how clean are they really after being worn 8 times? But yeah, clean socks, clean underwear, and like maybe an extra bra if I want. And then I just have stuff to keep you a little bit warmer. So my puffy, I always have my puffy. I always have like a smart wool quarter zip to actually hike in because it gets really, once your body gets moving, you get really, really hot. And Crocs. I hated Crocs so much. I thought they were hideous, but I bought them for my camp shoes and I love them. Most
Yeah,
comfortable shoes I
because
own.
then your feet can like air out, right? From
Yeah.
being steamy all day inside your boots.
Yeah. And then they're just like squishy and comfortable and they kind of like massage your feet a little bit. So I definitely would never go without them and trekking poles. I couldn't do it without trekking poles. Plus my tent's a trekking pole tent. So I, you know, need them anyway, but they just take so much pressure off of your knees and ankles. Me having had 4 surgeries on each of those, it's a little more complicated. And I need a more TLC on trail than probably your most able-bodied person does, but I get through it.
What's your proudest moment?
Proudest moment would probably be when I finished the entire Georgia section and was coming down the mountain into North Carolina to Deep Gap, and I was just so overcome with emotion. I couldn't even finish because I started crying, and I didn't want the trail angels to see me crying because I was just so moved by the experience and so happy. Yeah, that would definitely be it. Mhm.
I love that you didn't want the trail angels to see you. Haven't brushed your hair in days, but
I just don't want them to see me crying because it's like I was just so proud of myself. It was, tears well earned. So, to do all that solo, it just made it more special. Yeah.
absolutely. What
Mhm.
was your scariest moment?
My scariest moments always involve storms. One time I was doing the Woody to Neil's section, and I've done that section a million times. I knew that there was storms on the radar and that they would probably hit Blood Mountain around 3 o'clock. So I had an idea of a time. And I was hiking with this father and son that I had met earlier that day. And the son, oh my gosh, he must have been hiking at like 6 miles an hour. That kid was so fast. It was insane. He kept saying, I got to get to the store. I got to get to the store as fast as I can. But we still had like another 3 hours or something. And when I got on Blood Mountain, that's when the rain got really crazy. You could see lightning coming down. And I was scared. Yeah, I was scared. I was like, I don't want to be up here with trekking poles. I'm the tallest thing on the top of this mountain right now. I need to get down as fast as possible.
Maybe this answer is on the AT. Maybe it's off the AT. What's been the coolest, the fun, like what's your favorite hike you've ever done?
Delta Lake in Wyoming. It was the most incredible place I've ever seen. Like done hikes that bust your ass. It's really hard. And then you get to the top and there's like, this is it. It's like such an utter disappointment.
I've done those where you're like, okay, it was like a neat hike, yet why did it
Yeah.
take me here of all
Yeah.
places?
But Delta Lake definitely wasn't like that at all. It was scary because you're not even on a marked trail. It's not maintained trail by the Forest Service. So you have to follow GPS. There are enough people that where it's popular enough where you can pretty much do it without getting lost or hopefully severely injured. You have to do a couple scrambles up boulders that are a little scary because you're on all fours going up and you're kind of like, was this a good idea? Just feel like this might have been a bad idea. And you just try to keep going. And Brandon and I both hit points, kind of like a dark place where Brandon was ready to go, turn around. And I kept pushing him and we got up. And then I remember at one point, I'm holding onto roots to haul myself up the mountain. And in my head, I'm just saying, I hate this. I hate this. Why do I do this? I always feel like this. I hate this. It's the worst thing ever. And then, like, I'm just trying to haul myself up there. And you get to the top and it's just like, it's so gorgeous and just the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my entire life was up there. And it's probably that beautiful because it's so untouched and hard to get to. I'll definitely do it again. Mm-hmm.
Where can people find you? Like, do you post your travel stories anywhere?
I'm not consistent with it. So my Instagram and Facebook, my Instagram profile is public, but it's not all, it's just my Instagram. It's not going to be focused purely on backpacking or traveling. I think there's a lot of influencers out there who are backpacking and have really, really great information for people who are looking into getting into doing backpacking and possibly doing it solo. One girl from Alabama, her trail name is Dixie, and she has fantastic YouTube videos on how to do everything from throwing a bear hang to setting up a tent pole. So yeah, lots of good resources out there.
What's your next trip?
I don't know if I'm going to do any solo stuff this year. I mean, I would like to get on trail and do the AT, start knocking out my North Carolina section this year. I just don't know when yet. I am going to do part of the AT in Vermont. And then Brandon and I are going back to Wyoming in October. So we'll have some fun hikes planned for that trip too.
What have I not asked you yet that you want to tell the people?
Well, I guess one of the things is if you are hiking in Georgia, and you wake up and you hear lots of gunfire and helicopters, there's not a war going on. It is the Rangers doing their war games and training.
You're speaking from experience, I'm guessing.
Yes. Don't be alarmed. My shuttle driver did tell me that they were out there. So I was prepared. So it wasn't a thing where I woke up thinking the world was ending or anything like that. Don't be overly scared of animals, but a bear is going to get in your stuff if it tries hard enough. You can only do as much as you can by keeping all smellables off of you and and trying the best not to have those bears become habituated. We had what we thought was a coyote come through our campsite. It was like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, because that night we had heard a huge pack of coyotes hunting. And that was a really unsettling sound. I've never heard that before, because they're just screeching and it sounds like there are 800 of them, and you can hear them moving through the woods. Definitely tell that they're hunting together. And so I just assumed it was a coyote in our campsite, but I wasn't going to unzip my tent and find out.
Right.
But but then a few days later, I was looking on one of the trail forums, and someone had said that there's a bear that consistently lives up in North Carolina, Standing Indian section. But I guess they had seen him at that plum orchard section in Georgia, which he usually doesn't come down to. But when someone said that they saw a bear down there, I was like, that had to be what I heard, because it sounded big. Go out and hike your own hike and see what the woods has to provide for you. It can be very healing, and the trail will always call your name.
Well, thank you so, so much for being with us and being my first guest and
Yeah.
sharing all your adventures with us. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Do you have cool adventures that you'd like to share? I'd love for you to be our next guest. Follow me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and send me a message. Don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on The Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.